Week 5 extensions. So, week 5 extension, the first question said, what is the slope of a linear function that is perpendicular to the linear function y equals 0.25x plus 9? Alright? So, first things first, when you think about the word linear, you should think about the word line. Alright? And when you think about the general form for a line, you should always think about y equal, yep, you know it, mx plus b. Alright? Where y is your total, but the main thing is that m is your slope and b is your y-intercept, okay? So for my equation that I have here, I have y equal 0.25x plus 9, all right? So in this case, the 0.25 is my slope and the 9 is my y-intercept, all right? So normally, we're not used to where our slope is a decimal, all right? So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to convert this decimal right here into a fraction, all right? So 0.25x is basically 25 out of 100, all right? So it's kind of like saying 25%, okay? So 25 out of 100 can actually simplify to be 1 over 4. Because both 25 and 100 are both divisible by 25, okay? So then we write the x and then plus 9. So the question says, what is the slope of the linear function that is perpendicular? So the slope of this function is 1 over 4, all right? So what we need to do is that we need to do the perpendicular of that slope, okay? So when you're doing perpendicular, okay, all right, you have to do the opposite of the sign, flip the number. So the opposite, so again, the slope is this right here. So this is our slope, okay, just the 1 over 4, not including the x, just the 1 over 4. So the 1 over 4 is my slope. So when I do the perpendicular, I just change the sign, flip the number. So it's going to go from 1 over 4 to 4 over 1. Apply the negative only to the number at the top, so my perpendicular slope is negative 4. So the answer would be negative 4. Alright, so again, just like that. So what about the next one? So it says, what is the slope of the line that is parallel to a line that passes through 10, 2, and 25, 15? Alright, so again, we want to know this, the slope of a line that is parallel to it. Alright, the word parallel means what? Same slope, okay? But this time we weren't given an equation. So how do I find slope when I'm not given an equation? Well, when you're trying to find slope, you should remember change in y. So again, to find slope, you need to remember change in y divided by change in x. So that's how you find slope, okay? But that's just a fancy way of saying y2 minus y1, because again the change means you're doing the difference in between them, divided by x2 minus x1. A lot of times I like to set it up where I write a fraction, a minus sign in between, and 2 sets of parentheses on the right side, okay? So you're probably wondering what's the x1, y1, and x2 and y2. Well, because this is the first point it goes through, that's my x1 and my y1. Because this is the second point, this would be my x2 and y2. So my x2 goes right here, okay? Oh, sorry, this would be x1, sorry. Okay, so my x1 goes right here, so the 10 goes here. The y1 goes on top of it, so the 2 goes on top. And then my x2 was 25, and my y2 was 15, that goes on top. And all I have to do now is calculate, okay? So 15 minus 2 is 13, and 25 minus 10 is 15. So my parallel slope just means that I keep my slope the same, all right? So essentially, whatever this slope is will match my slope for the parallel line. So my answer would be this one, okay? If it was perpendicular, it would be this one. So again, if it was perpendicular, it would be this one, all right? So let's try the next one. So it says, what is the line perpendicular to y equal 3x minus 5? So what we're going to do is that it's already in the form y equal mx plus b. So all I gotta do is identify what the perpendicular of that would be. Well, the slope in this case, all right, would be 3. So my slope is 3. So to find my perpendicular, all right, so that's a symbol that represents perpendicular. All I have to do is change the sign. So it's going to go from a positive to a negative, and it's going to go from 3 to 1 over 3. Because again, the denominator here is a 1, so I just write it as a negative 1 over 3. Okay, so that's what the perpendicular slope would be. So I'm going to look for, because again, we're not passing through any points, so all I need to do is just have the perpendicular slope. So this one would be the answer. All right. In this case, it doesn't matter what the y-intercept is because we weren't told what point we were going through. All right. So again, you just look for the slope that has that perpendicular slope. So let's look at the next one. So which equation represents the line graph below? So I need to find which equation is this line. So all of these equations are in the form y equal mx plus b. So the first thing I'm going to do is realize that my line is going where? It's going up, because again, you always look from the left to the right. So my line is going up. If my line is going up, that means my slope is positive. All right. So that's one hint you can already look at just by just by looking at it. Okay. So my slope is positive. When I look at all of these slopes, those are positive. Okay. Now you're going to look for the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is where you intercept the y-axis. Okay. And in this case, it intercepted it at the positive values of y. So also my y-intercept is positive. All right, so that's another thing you can also deduce. Okay, so I can eliminate all the y-intercepts that are negative. So this one would be wrong because that y-intercept is negative. This one would be wrong because that y-intercept is negative. So again, now it's in between these two. All right. So what I'm going to do, guys, is that I'm going to try to find the slope by going from a solid point to a solid point. So this one you're going to have to look very closely. All right. So let's try to look for a solid point. So this, or let's start from down here. So when it comes on to a solid point, this looks like a solid point, and this looks like a solid point. All right. So how would we get there? Well, we would go up 1, 2, 3. So wait, 1, 2, 3. That looks like 4 times, right? I believe. So this isn't perfect, so I'm just going by what I can see. All right, so that looks like 4 times, so that would be a positive 4. Then I would go to the right, so that's at -6. Right? Yep, -6. So then I'll go to the right, 1, 2. All right, so this isn't as perfect because the lines are a little fainted. So it's hard to really see what's happening. So let's pick another solid point instead. So this looks like a solid point. And the lines are a little faint. So yeah, it's pretty hard to see this, guys, because the lines are a little faint. All right, so this looks like up 1, 2, 3. Right, so this one is not perfect for us to be able to answer, guys. All right, mainly because the lines aren't as bright for us to really see. But your aim would be going from a solid point to a solid point. I'm assuming it should have been 5 over 3. Okay, but either one of these answers could work. All right, the one I would select is possibly this one because again, it's the one that I think pops out to me the most. All right, or this one. It's just hard to kind of deduce. 1, 2, 3, but that's not right 5 times. All right, so it's just pretty hard for me to see. I would probably pick this one because again, I'm not moving too much to the right. Okay, so I'm assuming this is the one that would work. All right, but it's very hard for you to see that. Okay, so let's try the next one. So the next one says, which statement correctly compares the slope and y-intercept of the two functions? All right. So whenever we see our linear equation, we should think about y equal mx plus b, all right, where m is your slope and b is your y-intercept, all right? So in this case, when I'm trying to identify the slope for this equation, for g of x, Okay, and then this will be r of x. We're going to firstly compare slope, okay, and then y-intercept, okay. So the slope for g of x would be 2, and the y-intercept for g of x is -1, okay. So now let's try to find the slope for r of x, all right? So the slope for r of x you can find by doing the change in y divided by the change in x, all right? So what you can do is just pick 2 points. So we're going to do the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which you represent as a fraction, minus sign between, 2 sets of parentheses. So I'm going to pick this as my x1 and y1, this as my x2 and y2. Plug in my x1 here, so I plug in 1 here. On top of it, I would put 4. Plug in 10 here. Oh, no, sorry, plug in 2 here, and then 10 on top. All right? So this 10 minus 4 is 6, and then 2 minus 1 is 1. 6 divided by 1 is 6. So the slope is 6. But you could already kind of figure that out by looking at the fact that this changed from -2 to 4, so that's plus 6. Went from 4 to 10, so that's plus 6. Went from 10 to 16, that's plus 6. All right? So, and then it's changing by 1 every time. So that's 6 over 1. All right? So that's another way other than using the formula. Okay? So now we're going to identify the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is when your x value is 0. So when you have a table, whenever you see where the x value is 0, that y value is your y-intercept, all right? Because again, your y-intercept is normally a coordinate, okay? So it would be 0 and then some y value. So in this case, my y-intercept is -2, okay? So what we're going to do, guys, is that we're going to try to evaluate what's greater, what's less than, and so forth. So for slope, for r of x, it's bigger than g of x, okay? And then for y-intercept, however, g of x is actually bigger than r of x, okay? Because -1 is bigger than -2. -2 is more negative than -1, all right? So let's see which one would be the answer. So r has lesser y-intercept and a slope that is 2 times the slope of function q, all right? So it's lesser y-intercept, so r has a lesser y-intercept, so r does have a lesser y-intercept, okay? And a slope that is 2 times q, all right? Oh, so this is q, not g, okay? So so it says 2 times q, so if I multiply this by 2, I will get 4, not 6, all right? So again, this one wouldn't be exact because this is more like 3 times q, not 2 times. So this one says function r has a greater y-intercept. So, yep, function r has a lesser y-intercept. So this one is also wrong. Function r has a lesser y-intercept. Yes, it does have a lesser y-intercept. And the slope, that is, yep, 3 times q. All right? So this one will be off because it said r has a greater y-intercept when r has a lesser y-intercept. All right? So this will be the answer. Now the last one. So it says which function has the greatest slope? All right? So all of these are all in the form y equal mx plus b. All right? Where we know m represents the, you know it, slope. Okay? And b is the y-intercept. Okay? So when I look at all these equations, all right, for this equation, the slope is 5 over 3. For this equation, in front of the x is a -1 or -1 over 1. For this one, it's 3 over 4. For this one, it's 3 over 2. Okay? So for this, if you were supposed to calculate this, I put this in your calculator, you would get 1.667. -1 divided by 1 is -1. 3 divided by 4 is 0.75. And 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. All right? So which one has the greatest thing? So 1.667 is bigger than all of these numbers. All right? So this would have the greatest slope. All right? So again, guys, just like that. Okay?